Welcome back. If this just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A quick reminder of our top stories now. Ban on commercial motorcycles and tricycles takes toll on operators as commuters lament hike in transport fares by bus operators in Lagos. Doctors call for the declaration of health emergency over Lassa fever. Kaduna state government announces first death from disease and one new case. President Muhammadu Buhari sets up committee to study new visa restriction against Nigeria by President Trump's administration, restates commitments to productive bilateral relations with the US. And countries close their borders to foreign visitors from China as deadly coronavirus spreads. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Do subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple, Android, Fire and Roku TV. Now, a woman was today killed while two others were injured after a Mack truck loaded with about two 20-feet containers lost control and fell on its side, trapping three persons. On getting to the scene of the accident at the Ogudu area of the city, officers of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency were able to rescue two of the victims, while one was found dead. The incident resulted in a gridlock, leaving motorists on the road for hours. The January 14 Supreme Court judgment in respect of the Imo State governorship elections is still very much in the news as the state chapter of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, took to the streets of Owerri, the state capital, to protest what it describes as a miscarriage of justice. Leaders of the protesters and former secretary to the state government, Mr. Uche, says that the only thing that will assuage the pains of members of the PDP is for the Apex Court to review the verdict. In the meantime, supporters of the All Progressives Congress, the APC in Imo State, have held a solidarity rally in support of the state governor, Mr. Hope Uzodimma.
Weeks after the Supreme Court judgment that ended the tenure of Emeka Ihedioha as the governor of Imo State, his supporters, as well as those of the People's Democratic Party in the state, have taken to the streets of Owerri, the state capital, to protest against the verdict. Led by a former secretary to the state government, the protesters described the judgment as a travesty of justice, calling for a review of the verdict by the Apex Court.
We are giving them opportunity by this rally to clean their shame. Yes. They have to go back and reverse themselves. Yes. They have to bring back justice to the people of Amen. Yes. They have to bring justice back to the people who have voted.
While the supporters of the PDP are asking for a reappraisal of the judgment, members of the All Progressives Congress in Imo State converged on the International Conference Center in the state capital for a solidarity march in support of the state governor, Mr. Hope Uzodimma. From there, the crowd marched to the government house, where they are received by the deputy governor and other top government officials.
We are here to felicitate with our new governor because we know his character, we know his antecedents, we know his contacts and connections, we know his exposure. He has been 2-term senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
In the meantime, Anglican bishops of Owerri province have weighed in by appealing to residents of the state to avoid any action that could lead to the breakdown of law and order.
This should encourage us to shun every temptation to take laws into our hands or do anything that could worsen both the economic, political and security situation in our dear state.
It's hoped that this appeal by the bishops will be taken seriously by the people so that at the end of it all, peace will continue to reign in Imo State.
Let's now take a further look at the new visa restriction by the U.S. government as it affects Nigerians. And of course, joining us on the News at 10 to discuss this is an associate professor of history and international relations at the University of Lagos, Dr. David Awurawo. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the News at 10. How would you describe this latest decision by the Trump administration? Banning immigrants' visas to Nigerians. How do you view this?
Well, it is not surprising considering the promises, the antecedents of President Trump. He campaigned on the platform of America First, and he made it very clear right from the beginning that he was going to restrict movement to the United States. So it is not surprising that he continues to expand, the countries and the reasons, why people will be restricted from coming to the United States. One thing that is striking about the reasons given is that it seems as if the Trump administration just looks for any reason when a country is targeted, for restriction as far as movement to the United States.
So is this not necessarily about security?
I don't think so.
You think he's trying to hit something else?
I don't think it has anything to do. Look, if it were security and information sharing as, with the reasons given, these issues could easily have been sorted out with the Nigerian government. There is no indication that, the American government reached out to the Nigerian government regarding things they ought to have done to be able to comply with the, U.S. requirements on this, and that the Nigerian government fell short. There is no indication along that line. So the Trump administration just, restricts movement to the United States and cites all sorts of reasons, to justify their action.
So what then can the government, the Nigerian government, do in this instance to, avoid these kinds of treatment? Because I know very clearly that Nigerians take very seriously anything that has to do with the United States in as much as they respect that country. What can the government do in this instance?
Well, I think the government has acted rightly. A committee has been set up to take the U.S. government on its words that the reason for the action revolves around security and information sharing issues, so that the committee will recommend ways and means by which the Nigerian government will reach out to the American government, let them reveal what they expect the Nigerian government to do, and the Nigerian government will most probably, of course, most certainly walk along that line to be able to, defray any fear, so that when all those things are done, then they will wait to see what other excuse the American government will give in trying to restrict movement of Nigerians to the United States.
Now, this is what that statement is saying. As a matter of fact, we could just verbatimly quote here. The restriction does not affect other categories such as officials, businesses, tourism, and student travel visas. But is there any reason to fear that even these ones that are not in that list now could be affected later on?
Even if they are not categorized as, categories that are affected by this ban, there is, a particular principle, philosophy, body language of government, such that if somebody applies for tourist visa, B1, B2 visa, for instance, if somebody is denied, they just give some reason. They just push some papers to him and say, go and read those papers. You see the reason why you have been denied there. More applicants for those other categories of visas will most certainly be denied, given this ban on these other categories. So I don't expect the American government to come and ban all categories of visa applicants. But the body language is restriction of movement of people, people going to the United States for different reasons. So student visa, B1, B2 visa, all of those ones will be reduced drastically, given the restriction imposed on these other categories.
So as it stands now, the United States government, through this information, says that even pregnant women are restricted from coming into the United States to have their babies. Do you think that this will adversely affect bilateral relations between the two countries?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think so. Because Nigeria is the weaker partner in this. You don't have Americans coming to Nigeria to come and give birth, to have their children become Nigerian citizens. It's a one-way traffic. And so what Nigeria would likely do is what we have already seen taking place, try to meet the requirements set by the United States, such that relations will continue to be maintained. Other aspects of relations will not be affected negatively, in the course of bilateral interactions. So I don't see that affecting bilateral relations between Nigeria and the U.S. negatively. I think things will still just proceed, normally. And of course, governments come, governments go. I'm sure there are Nigerians who will, someday things will change and the status quo will be returned to.
That's a good place to let it rest. I most sincerely thank you, Professor of History and International Relations at the University of Lagos, Dr. David Awurawo. Many thanks indeed for talking to us here on the News at 10.
Thank you.
To security matters now, the Vice Chairman of the Nigeria Bar Association, Taraba State Branch, has been kidnapped by unknown gunmen. Zainab Kashibu was abducted from her residence in the CBN street in Jalingo, the Taraba State capital, just yesterday. The police spokesperson, David Misal, told Channels Television that her abductors came in their numbers and whisked her away to an unknown destination, but that efforts are on to ensure her rescue. Also confirming the incident, the Assistant Secretary of the NBA branch in Jalingo, Barrister Dodo Niba, said that her abductors are yet to contact the family members on their demands. Last year, the Taraba State NBA branch chairman, Joel Daniel, was also kidnapped and released after an undisclosed ransom was paid. In the meantime, the wife of the Kaduna-based medical doctor, Philip Ataga, who was abducted by, along with her 2 children last Saturday, has been killed by her abductors. Very sad development we're getting here on the News at 10. We can rightly inform you that the woman and her 2 children were abducted from their home in Juji community in Chukun local government area of the state by the kidnappers, who also killed a member of a local vigilante group in the area during the operation. The body of the woman was found in the early hours of today, with the whereabouts of her 2 children still unknown. The spokesman of the Kaduna State Police Command, DSP Yakubu Sabo, told Channels Television that the woman's body found inside a bush on the Abuja-Kaduna highway with her back riddled with bullets. He adds that the kidnappers had established contact with the family of the victims and demanding the ransom before they were released, the 2 children, before they will, of course, release the 2 children in their custody. 2 people, including a pregnant woman, have lost their lives while fleeing from a communal crisis between indigents of Ihiarvev and Baverv community of the Chief ethnic group in Benue State. Governor Samuel Ortom confirmed the deaths during a visit to the communities along with the Boko and Makodi Road area, where he ordered the district head of the areas to fish out the perpetrators of the crime to face the wrath of the law. Over 37 houses were burnt during the clashes over land, local bricks, production sites on the banks of River Benue, fueling the existing tension from land disputes there.
I'm happy that the State Security Council directed yesterday that all the perpetrators should be arrested. And I joined them to direct the traditional rulers who are here to produce those people who perpetrated this destruction. None of them will escape. And the wrath of the law will catch up with them to serve as a deterrent to others. And I want to say that issues of land belongs to government. I'm the only authority in Benue State constitutionally empowered to allocate land. Nobody owns land there, but I'm doing that on behalf of the people of Benue State. And so nobody can claim ownership of any part of land without my consent. And so there is no basis. We're fighting here because of land. And so I condemn this act, and I'm going to act on it.
When the News at 10 returns, crude oil prices decline further as markets grow more concerns about the economic damage of the new coronavirus. That's some business news. Stay with us.